One of my favorite subgenres of horror is the serial killer film. Seven, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, and Silence of the Lambs are just a few that come to mind. But there is a film from Japan that defies every trope in the serial killer genre to the point that it truly remains its own unique viewing experience. An uncategorizable gem that is more of a meditation on the human condition than it is an outright serial killer film. Made in 1997, Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure is an unknowing precursor to the late 90s J-horror boom that eventually took over American cinemas with a steady stream of remakes. But Cure defies all of those films and presents one of the most terrifying concepts ever put on screen: the mundanity of madness. Hello, YouTube family. My name is Dennis Callow. I'm a photographer and a filmmaker. I'm not a critic. I'm not a scholar. I'm certainly not an expert. I'm just a guy who loves talking about movies, specifically horror movies, and I am really excited to talk to you today about Cure from 1997. But before we get into that, I just want to go over some stuff. It's a new year. It's 2023. Right now it's 2023. You could be watching this in the future or in the past if you're some weird, time traveler or otherworldly being. I don't know. Whenever you're watching this, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you found me. And if I'm not around anymore, then I'm speaking to you from beyond the grave. So I feel like this movie really does tie into what's going on right now in horror. We are seeing 2023 off to an amazing start with Skinamarink. I know it's a very polarizing film. I happen to love it. I talk about why I love it on this very channel. There is a before and after theater experience that I have posted right here. And right now we are in such an amazing year already because we have Skinamarink, and then we also have The Outwaters, which is coming out this month in February. I'm recording this in January, so I'm always a month ahead, trying to stay on top of things. But we're getting an amazing year already. Plus, we had Megan, which I haven't seen yet, but I heard really good things. So horror is looking good, it's looking strong, and it's looking like the only thing that can get people out to the box office right now. So this movie that I'm talking about today kind of falls in line with what's happening because it was a movie that took the serial killer genre and completely flipped it over on its head. Now, this is not a J-horror film. In fact, I don't even consider this a horror film. I think that this is a thriller, mainly, but it frightens me to my core because of how slow it is and how mundane the acts of violence are in it. Just to prep everyone, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. I was kind of wrecked after The Thing. The Thing part 1 and 2, that almost destroyed me as a person because it was so much research. It was like an unbelievable amount of research. The most research I've ever done in my life. I put a lot of work into those episodes. Please go check them out here. So I wanted to do something a little bit more simple. And this movie, surprisingly, I found everything I needed to find within one interview with the director, Kiyoshi Kurosawa. And I figured that's all it really needed. I mean, I do a little bit of analysis on it and my thoughts on it, but it was a very simple movie that was simply made. However, I do really enjoy how Kiyoshi Kurosawa kind of evolved into this director and got to this point, and I think that that's more of the main focus of this video. So I really hope you enjoy it, and I will see you afterward to say goodbye and thank you. Born in 1957 in Kobe, Japan, Kurosawa is affectionately known as the David Cronenberg of his native country. Kurosawa started humbly making what are known as pink films in Japan, a more pleasant term for erotic thrillers in the 80s, as well as Yakuza films. Although being a competent director who always got the job done fast and some minor hits under his belt, Kurosawa hit a dry spell, and by the 90s he was essentially unemployed. With an influx of free time on his hands, he began to come up with the basis of Cure after seeing the story of a murder on the nightly news and the suspect being described as such a nice, normal man. At this time, he also hooked up with a new employer, V Cinema, and pumped out 4 to 5 low-budget Yakuza films a year. V Cinema unfortunately began to crumble financially, so in order to finish the popular revenge movie series, Kurosawa and crew approached Daiei, a moderately large film company at the time, and along with revenge films, Kurosawa pitched his idea for Cure. They were so taken by it that they pushed the film immediately into production, and Kurosawa suddenly had the means to make a film worthy of his vision. Cure is filled with many wonderful performances, but Koji Yakusho and Masato Hagiwara put in 2 of the most memorable performances I have ever seen in a serial killer film. Koji Yakusho's performance in this film is absolutely breathtaking. After becoming a bona fide star in Japan following his leading man performance in Shall We Dance, Kurosawa immediately envisioned him as Detective Takabe. Upon reading the script, though, Yakusho wanted to take on the role of Mamiya, but Kurosawa pleaded with him to take the role as Detective Takabe. Yakusho relented, and what we get is a raw, beautiful, and emotional performance from a man unafraid to show the audience the darkest depths of the human spirit. His uncanny ability to go from emotional outburst to somber loving care can only be described as symphonic. When prepping Yakusho for the role, Kurosawa asked him to watch Abbas Kiarostami's And Life Goes On to study the main character's deadpan gaze. Yakusho very much connected to this, and his gaze in the film leaves so much to audience interpretation of what might be going on behind that gaze. The antithesis of Takabe is his nemesis Mamiya, played brilliantly by Masato Hagiwara, who was also a popular star in Japan at the time. He had previously played a similar criminal-type role in 1995's Marks, but when he suggested he play the role of Mamiya similar to that, Kurosawa said no, don't do that at all. Kurosawa asked him to completely rid himself of all the criminal types in his head and create a brand new one, and that's when Hagiwara truly began to shine. His performance is sinister and confounding as he saunters from scene to scene in a lofty haze. Yet he remains completely in control of his surroundings, as any great manipulator would. Truly, this is one of the scariest serial killers I've seen portrayed because he never kills anyone himself. He has everyone else do it for him under the guise that he is setting them free. Kurosawa went about structuring the film so that Detective Takabe is slowly influenced by Mamiya, and has stated that the most frightening parts in his mind were the interrogation scenes after Mamiya's capture. It's here that we start to understand how his process of hypnosis works, as well as how the person who seems to be the most immune to it is actually the most susceptible. Mamiya's frustrating, repetitive questions to a question was based on an actual patient Kurosawa had read about who lost and could not create their own memories. The doctor in the case became increasingly irritated with the constant repetition of the patient's questions, something we witness Mamiya doing time and time again in the film. A serial killer is often portrayed with a high degree of intelligence, but Mamiya seems almost otherworldly, like an alien from another planet trying to find his way to a home that he can't remember. One of the most effective aspects of the film are the extremely long takes with not a cut for miles. Personally, I love long takes, and I use this technique in my first short film, The Weekend. Particularly disturbing is the lackadaisical nature of the death scenes. Kurosawa has stated that he wanted to film these scenes as if he was filming a conversation between two people. So instead of a quick cut to an insert of the violence or a close-up of the killer's face as it's happening, the audience is forced to watch atrocities play out in seemingly real time, almost as if we are witnessing it from the perspective of the rational side of the murderer's mind, but is too suppressed by the power of hypnosis to stop it from happening. Reflecting back on those long, agonizing takes now, Kurosawa says he was shocked he let the camera run for so long, and that time and experience has forced him into a more conventional means of delivering a film. Perhaps the most effective use of the long take is during the interrogation of Officer Oida, where we see the effects of Mamiya's hypnotic suggestion in one single take. Adding to this is the surprising lack of music and more a focus on sound design instead. We get no stabs of strings when a horrific murder occurs, nor do we get a sinister swell of cellos when Mamiya is in the process of hypnotizing a mark. We are often left with just the sounds of the environment surrounding the two characters of a scene. The rustling of a metal rack, the gentle hum of an interrogation room, or the sound of birds on a beautiful spring day. In a way, this lack of score is the film's own way of hypnotizing the audience, like Mamiya hypnotizing his marks. It lulls you into a submissive state rather than an anxious one, leaving you mesmerized by the final shot. All of these elements combined brings us the world of Cure, a painfully ordinary place. But it's within that ordinary place that we uncover something truly frightening. An everyman, a gentle teacher, a caring doctor, and a stoic detective can all become what we fear the most from a simple suggestion. The suppressed rage we all walk around with on a daily basis, pushed down and held at bay because we have not come across a strange young man with an extraordinary penchant for evil. So there it is, folks, 1997's Cure by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Please go watch this movie. It will freak you out, it will creep you out, or you may hate it. I don't know. It's probably another polarizing film that I love that you might love too. If you want to check out my own slow cinema short film, The Weekend, it's the first film I ever made. It has its flaws, but I like it. I thought it was a good first movie. I still am very proud of it. I made it in 2015, and it was the first film I ever made. And I will link it, here, I guess. I don't know. Or it's in the show notes. If you don't see a box pop up here, then it's in the show notes. So go check it out. Other than that, I just appreciate you guys being here, and I'm excited for what 2023 is going to bring, not only for horror, but for my own name in the horror world and genre. I'm working on a lot of projects right now that I'm looking to see come to fruition, including my first feature film, Hide. It's exciting. It's an exciting time. So thank you, and I will see you in the next video.